Part 1. The meeting Lena was always early. Arriving on time felt like arriving late, so she made sure to be at the coffee shop 10 minutes before her friend's birthday gathering. She adjusted her sleeves, checked her phone, and scanned the room, her mind running through every possible awkward interaction that could happen. That's when she noticed him. Elliot sat alone at the far end of the cafe, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. His hoodie was slightly oversized, and his eyes carried a quiet weight like someone who had seen too many rainy days. Lena didn't realize she was staring until he looked up. For a second, neither of them said anything. Then he gave a small, tired smile. "You're here early too?" he asked, his voice low but warm. She nodded, hesitant. "Yeah, I don't like being late." "Me neither," he said. But Lena got the feeling his reason was different. Part 2. Getting to know each other. They kept running into each other, at mutual friends' gatherings, at the bookstore near campus, at the park when neither of them felt like being indoors. Conversations started slow but stretched longer each time. Lena talked fast, her thoughts a whirlwind of worries, what-ifs, and nervous energy. Elliot listened, responding in quiet, measured words. He wasn't much of a talker about himself, but he understood when she overanalyzed things. And she noticed the way he looked at the world, as if he were carrying something heavy but refusing to set it down. One evening, sitting on a rooftop and watching the city lights, Lena finally asked, "You ever feel like you're moving too fast and everyone else is too slow?" Elliot exhaled, staring at the streetlights below. "I feel like I'm standing still and the world is moving without me." She frowned. "That sounds lonely." "It is," he admitted. Then he glanced at her. "But I like how you move." Her chest tightened, not in anxiety, but in something softer. Part 3. The breaking point. At first, they balanced each other. She pushed him to get up, to try, to believe in something. He helped her slow down, to breathe, to let go of things that didn't matter. But slowly, the weight of their struggles started pressing down on them. Lena worried constantly. Was she texting too much? Not enough? Was Elliot upset? He was so quiet sometimes. She needed reassurance. And when he withdrew, it felt like she was screaming into silence. Elliot, on the other hand, felt drained. Some days he barely had the energy to get out of bed, let alone respond to a dozen messages. He wasn't trying to push her away. He just didn't have the strength to engage the way she needed. One night, after a long silence, Lena finally confronted him. "I feel like I'm holding this relationship together by myself," she said, her voice shaking. Elliot rubbed his temples, exhausted. "And I feel like I can't even hold myself together, let alone us." She stared at him, her breath catching in her throat. He wasn't saying he didn't care. He was saying he couldn't do it. Neither of them said it, but they both knew it was over. Part 4. The healing months passed. Lena threw herself into routine, therapy, journaling, exercise. She learned to soothe her anxiety without relying on constant external validation. She still overthought things, but she was getting better at recognizing when her brain was lying to her. Elliot started therapy too, though it took him longer. At first, it was just an obligation, something to get through. But slowly, it became a space where he could unpack everything: the numbness, the exhaustion, the quiet guilt of letting people down. They didn't speak, but they thought of each other. Part 5. The reunion. It was by chance. Another coffee shop, another moment of waiting. Lena looked up from her book and saw him. He looked lighter, not completely free, but as if the weight on his shoulders had shifted. Elliot saw her too, and something softened in his expression. He hesitated, then walked over. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she replied. For a moment, neither of them spoke. But the silence wasn't heavy this time. Then, quietly, he asked, "Do you want to sit with me?" Lena exhaled. This time she didn't have to overthink it. She smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." And this time they built something better. The end.